1 second. All right, got it. So we are live on YouTube. Just remember that when I ask you questions or anything, you have to unmute yourself. Let me see. Oh, I see. Okay. So I had to allow you to talk. So.
You baby.
Thank you. He will also be teaching you guys about SC2 today.
I can't wait.
Okay, cool. So Kathy wanted me to go over 2 things, and then I have 2 things on my list. So let me just double check, make sure she didn't send me something else. Okay, cool. So basically we're going to be talking about getting more people to the division meeting on Monday, and then setting people up for the tour next week. Oh, hey, Kathy. Kathy.
There we go.
There you
go. Baby Jackson joining us.
Did you want to?
My beautiful face too.
Kathy, did you want to say something?
No, I was just looking at Jackson Oliver.
Oh, okay, cool. So we're going to talk about getting more people to the division meeting that's happening on Monday, and then also how to set up the tour. And then once we go over that, I just wanted to go over some more keys on managing the alliance and how to make sure that you're having a great alliance meeting. Not necessarily the content, because you guys get that from the pilot, but just making sure that you guys are hitting certain keys with alliance members every single day to make sure that you're getting the most production from them. So, you know, what are you doing when you're sending them out? How are you managing the phone jam in the morning? So that's what we're going to be going over today. So the first thing that I said was getting more people to the division meeting on Monday. So just for clarification, the division meeting on Monday, that's for everybody, or that's just for alliance? You have to unmute yourself.
Is it definitely for everybody?
Yeah, Monday's for everybody.
For everybody. Okay, cool. So, oh, right. So the boot camp is the one that's just for alliance.
Yeah, that was last week. This is the division meeting kicking everything off.
Ah, exciting. Okay, great. So division meeting on Monday. So super important to make sure that you're getting as many people as you can to the division meeting for a couple different reasons. Number one, your alliance, that should already be like they're going, no questions asked. But by them going to this meeting, it's going to get them excited about who they're competing against. Number one. And number two, for the people that aren't on alliance, the reason why you want to get them to this event is it could get them excited about joining the alliance in the morning. So you're gonna get more production from those people. And number two, same thing as the alliance members, is just gonna get them excited about who they're competing against. It's a really great way to kind of foster that culture of competition. That's him, don't mind him, but a healthy culture of competition, so people are excited to contribute to something bigger than just their paycheck, really to contribute to the team. So for you as a manager, that's why getting people to this meeting should be a focus. So why should people go to this meeting? Well, number one, anybody who is excited about being in management, or anybody who's excited about making a big paycheck in the next couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure at that meeting, you know, they're going to be going over tips like closing like a champion, getting more recommendations, having great phone time, maybe even things that you haven't gone over as a manager. So what I would be promoting to the representatives is having like an edge during this push, and the alliance as well. Like, they probably have their own breakout where they're going to be taught, extra skills. So that would be their incentive to go. And for regular representatives, their incentive is, again, just getting those extra tips that they haven't gotten just from basic training. Just remember that when you guys are working with them on a weekly basis, you're just teaching them the basic stuff. And even though a lot of the talks at the division meeting are things that you've already told them, they're not going to, it's different when they hear from somebody else. When they hear from somebody else, it's more likely that they're going to follow that instruction or follow the advice that they're being given. So just make sure that you're getting them to that event. The best way to get more signups is promote it as being invited. So there's two extremes to it. You could kind of just hand out an invitation to everybody and then it doesn't have any meaning. Or number two, you can be too strict with the invitations and then people who have to come late or something like that, then they don't show up. Or you can go both ends, and I've pretty much done both before. And the way that you would be going too hardcore, like just giving too many invitations out, just be like, oh, you're invited, you're invited, you're invited, you're invited. Oh, you're invited because you're just a part of the team, or whatever. And the other extreme, which is holding out on inviting people and then inviting them last minute because you want to make the invitation seem, more valuable, that could backfire too, because then your people don't plan properly and then last minute you're trying to get them there. So what's the healthy balance of giving somebody an invitation? Well, I would say just making the invitation tailored to them. So when you have a conversation with somebody, it would be like, hey, Johnny, have you heard about the division meeting on Monday? No, you haven't heard about it. Okay, well, give them all the information about it. This is the division meeting. This is what it's for. This is what you can gain from it. But I wanted to talk to you because, and this is kind of where you segue into the invitation. I wanted to talk to you because, we have a limited number of seats at this meeting, and Kathy has allotted blank amount for our office. And when I was thinking about who I wanted to invite to come to this meeting, I thought about you, and here's why. So it's just ask me if they heard about it, give them the information about the meeting and why it's beneficial to them. Tell them, that you've been given a limited number of invitations, but then why you personally want them there and what you think they can gain out of it. So let's say this person just started, right? And this is going to be a lot of you that have people coming into training this week. I would tell them, hey, we have a limited number of seats, for this event coming on Monday. And I was thinking about who I wanted to have there. And when I thought about the people that are already on Alliance and the people that are going to be at the event, I really thought of you because I know you just started, but throughout the training, you've been working really hard. I've liked you from the interview. I love your energy. And I can probably bet money that if had you started a little bit sooner, you probably would have been a part of the Alliance too. And I just wanted to invite you to come to this event because I want to get you surrounded with a lot of the top people because I think you can do really well. And I think you'll get a lot from it, and then kind of going through their schedule. And one question that I like to ask them is that something you'd be excited about, kind of gauging their interest about it. And if you did a good job of building it up, they're going to be like, oh, wow, thank you so much. That's amazing. And you'll know if you did a poor job of building it up, if they're like, oh, well, I'm not so sure I can do that. Or, I don't know if I want to go to that, or I don't know if that's right for me, or, whatever it is. So that's a good way to tell if you're doing a good job with these conversations or not. And if you are doing a bad job, then you can reach out and we can go through your talking points and fix it before you talk to, the next people. But that's pretty much what I would do as far as your team goes. And then during training this week, making sure that in your intro talk, you're letting them know that you guys have this event on Monday, and you will be inviting X number of, trainees to go to the event. So, and to ask you about it if they're interested. So that's a really great way to automatically gauge interest as well, and get people to that event. So on PDI all day, I would be talking to everybody about the event. And something else I would do too that I used to do is one, post it on GroupMe and say like, hey, like just excitement stuff, like looking forward to the meeting on Monday, just to create that buzz when other people are also talking about the event. It brings a lot more value to it as well. So I would hit up your alliance and hit up your assistant managers and tell them, hey, like, let's create some buzz in the GroupMe, about the event on Monday. And then you'll post like, hey, I'm super excited. And then everybody else can post, what they're most excited about. And if this is like your second year running an office, I would have people that have already been to the event giving their testimony about them attending this event last year. So, hey, before SC2, the SC2 conference, I went to the division meeting and my average order was blank and I sucked at selling, but I went to this division meeting and I became amazing. And then I went to SC2 and I won a trophy, something like that. So if you do have those stories, I would post them. And then managers at, your branches or a new DM, you don't have those stories, just steal them from somewhere else and say, from someone else and say, hey, look, this person, from Clear Lake office, this is what they had to say about the division meeting, and create that buzz. That way, people are hearing about it in training, people are hearing about it at team meeting, people are hearing about it at phone jam, they're hearing about it from other people. And then finally, they hear about it from you when they receive, a personal invitation. So that's how I would get more people to the division meeting on Monday. Just some small logistical tips to make sure people are actually getting there is I would run a phone jam Monday morning at the meeting or at your office. If the meeting is far from you, then I would make a plan for everybody to phone jam at the meeting like an hour before. So let's say the meeting starts at, let's say 1:00, I would make a plan for everybody to be there by 11:30 so they can check in with you and then have a phone jam from 12 to 1 before the event begins. I never tell people the true event start time. So if it starts at 1, I always tell people it starts like at 12:30, because you're always going to have those people that push it to the last minute to get there just right on time. And you don't want that. You want your team to be there before it starts. Number one, so they can phone jam. Number two, so you can get everybody in the right mindset. I would always have everybody show up a half hour early because I lied to them about the time. And then I would have a team huddle, get everybody super pumped up, get the whole team sitting together. And again, what does that do? That creates a culture that, this is our team, helps them take pride in their team. And when they see other teams, or other offices, it gets them excited to compete and to contribute to something that's not just their own paycheck, but to the sales of the office. So that's pretty much. Oh, and then backtrack a little bit. If you are going to have them phone jam from the office and then head to the event, something I would do if you're setting up carpools is I would have the least amount of reps possible drive and the most amount of assistant managers and alliance members drive. What's the reason for that? The reason for that is whenever you have like new reps volunteer to drive the carpool, they'll leave early or go on break and then like not come back on time. And what you want is you want to give the responsibility to each assistant manager driving or to each alliance member driving to have a productive conversation in that car. And you're going to have people that are going to be like, oh, well, I want to drive. And what I normally want to do is try to eliminate the amount of cars going, because I want as many people from the team going in one car as possible, just so they can bond. But also if you have like an assistant manager in there or an alliance member and you've coached them to have like good productive conversations, you can find out a lot from your representatives. And I can recall, my first conferences, car rides that I had that were very impactful. Like my first conference that I went to was not over the summer. It was in January to a year-end banquet, and we drove up from Miami to Atlanta, I think it is where it was. And it was like Randy, me, my closest Cutco friends. And I want to say that we became friends on that trip going up there. And it's one of the biggest reasons why I stuck around with Cutco was because of the people and the conversations and the connections. And that's where that stuff gets built. So at the end of the summer, when you see people being friends and like celebrating and leaning on each other for support the next summer's branches. A lot of those times, those things are not built just from, the days in and out of the office over the summer, but in those small moments like a car ride where they can have an impactful conversation. So what are some talking points you can give your assistant managers and your alliance members who are driving to have those conversations, or for yourself, if you don't know and you're driving some people, is I would ask everybody, what they're excited about for this meeting or for this conference, whether it's SC2 or division meeting, and what they're looking to get out of it. So what are they excited about? What are they looking to get out of it? And then I would give them tips for during the conference, like, hey, I really encourage you guys to sit, as close up front as you possibly can. We're gonna have our own section, so I want you guys to sit, all together. Take a lot of notes. Look out for this talk. It's really going to be impactful. And then when you guys are leaving the conference, this is where you can have, an even cooler conversation. Is you can say, what did everybody get from this event, and what are you thinking now? It's almost like a little PC, but more off the cuff. And what's cool is when you have everybody in the car kind of giving their opinion on what they're excited about, because you'll have some people excited about branch, some people excited about assistant manager, and just everybody sharing that experience could be really impactful for them for the rest of the summer. So I think I didn't do this right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about is making sure that your people are set up for Kathy's tour. So the tour is when Kathy interviews people for GCLA, and it's really important to have a conversation, with your representatives on how they show up to meet Kathy for the tour, for a couple different reasons. The first one is Kathy's energy on the tour. You have to keep in mind, number one, this time around she's pregnant, so she's already going to be, have less energy than she has in other summers. Number two, she's already gone through a full summer just like you guys, but on a division manager level, which is crazy. SC2 is going on, so there's the waking up early, the going to bed late. She's meeting with a lot of people, and if you know from interviewing a lot of people, the more energy you give people, like you get pretty tired. And one way that you can re-energize Kathy and make sure that she's up for giving the most to your people is making sure that your guys are set up, because when they come dressed sharp, ready with responses to her questions, some with startup, in their hand, it gets her excited. All right, gives her a natural energy, and she'll be able to give back a lot more to your people. So for the tour to be effective, it's not only making sure your guys are set up, but making sure they're set up to give her energy so she can give back to you. All right. I think throughout this time, she probably interviews like 100 people. And it's not just like running a normal interview, because she's diving in with each one and like asking questions and getting to know each person. So making sure they're set up is huge. So how do you set them up? Well, the first thing you have to do is identify the different people that you have on your team. You're going to have some people that are excited about branch, some people excited about being a DM, some people that are excited about assistant manager, and some people that, maybe they're not necessarily interested. You kind of have to talk to them about it, sell them on it, but they would be amazing in one of those three roles. So I'll give you my conversation for those kinds of people, and then the conversation I would have with those who want to open offices, and then the conversation I would have with people who want to be assistant managers. And then the setup is all the same, minus startup varies based on, who you're talking to and how aggressive you're going to go with it. But those conversations need to happen now, not waiting until the next week, because if somebody wants to open an office and you talk to them about startup, you can put them on the withholding programs during the push, and that's where they're going to save the bulk of their money. So that's why you want to have these conversations sooner rather than later. So let's talk about the first kind of person on your team, which is somebody that you really want to have in GCLA because you know that they could benefit a lot from it, but also they're just the right person. But you're not sure that they're interested, or you're not sure that they've heard, much about it. And my biggest tip that I can tell you is don't don't make it seem like somebody has to do anything. Rather show them the opportunity, like why that is a good opportunity for them, show them why this is going to benefit them, and let them make that decision. And already know in advance that not everybody that you want to be a branch and not everybody that you want to be a DM or AM or be in GCLA is going to be, and that's okay. You're going to get more value. You're going to get more from the people that you just pour into them and help them with their goals in and outside of Cutco, and don't push them in one way versus another, because when you do that, they operate out of a place for like they have to do it versus they want to do it. So we can have conversations not to make them want to do it, but to show them why they should want to do it. But we can't force anybody to do anything. All right. So when you have the conversation with somebody, maybe isn't sure or you don't know if they're interested in it, the first thing that I would do, and this is part of kind of like the SC2 PC that we talked about before, the first thing that I would do is find out what their goals are outside of Cutco. Whether they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or they don't know what they want to be, and try and pinpoint how Cutco is going to help them get there. So here's an example. Let's say you sit down and meet with a representative and you're like, so, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about like your goals today, what you're excited about in Cutco, what you're excited about out of Cutco, what is it that you want to do later on after Cutco? And let's say they want to be a lawyer. Oh, I really want to be a lawyer. I'm really passionate about criminal defense. And, so right now I'm going to A&M, and then I want to go here for law school. And that's my plan. And I'm super excited about it. Okay, great. Have you thought about where you would like to do an internship one day? No, I haven't thought about it. And that's kind of usually my segue. Oh, have you thought about what you're going to do for your internship? Because most majors, they normally suggest you do an internship like your junior or senior year. And most internships don't accept people younger than their junior year of college. So I normally ask them, oh, have you thought about what you're going to do for an internship so you can get some skills for your resume? 90% of the time, because there are those 10% who do, they say no. And I say, oh, okay. Well, just so you know, based on my experience, when you want to go apply for a job in this field later on, obviously you're going to need some experience. What do you think are some skills they're going to be looking for in your resume? Well, I want to be a lawyer, so probably, an internship in a law office. And that's the first thing they'll say. And I'll say, yeah, they'll definitely look for you for experience in a law office. However, a lot of law firms or a lot of different majors, they won't accept you for an internship unless you're in your junior or senior year in college. So, there are still things you can do before that to build your resume. Have you heard about GCLA? No, I haven't heard about GCLA. Or yes, I've heard about GCLA.
You froze. Can anybody else hear, or did I freeze?
You just stopped talking.
I don't hear her either.
Okay. So she froze. Huh. No, we have more at the house. It looks like she logged off and she'll be logging back in. So real quick, what she was just sharing right now, super money in terms of like that transition and how you go through it, of like, hey, have you thought about what you're doing for an internship? What kind of skills? And so even just asking them like, hey, what are you doing in the future? What kind of skills do you want? Do you think you'll need, or do you think they'll be looking for? And talking about that. And that's something that we constantly talk about. And I love that verbiage. But just, it's all about like, what are they doing later and connecting this to what they're doing, right? So even as simple as asking them, hey, what do you think, what do you think that you need? That right there makes a really big difference. And them telling you, oh, I'm going to need communication skills. I'm going to need this, or I'm going to need that. And then you tell and be like, oh my gosh, have you heard about GCLA? So I want to pause real quick. Comments on stuff she's covered so far, or any questions?
Definitely the invitation part of the job is pretty cool. Thought it might be a pretty cool aspect to actually get some real invitations and be like, here you go, man. Like I actually, not like here you go, right? But definitely like, hey, whenever Kathy asked me who I might want to go to this event, I actually thought of you because I really like your energy.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, I know you've been actually working here for only like a week, but, you know, since we've met, like I really like the enthusiasm and like your attitude.
Yeah. And so it was like, and I could see he's one of the leaders, and especially the more you know about what they want, right? What they want to gain. And it's like, hey, I know you really wanted to get experience with, me. And they're like, oh yeah, I want to help you get the most out of it. And then the other, yeah,
Okay, I don't know what happened.
sorry. Okay, there she is. But something that's important to, what was I just going to say? Oh my gosh. The division meeting is actually the last division meeting, the last event that we have for the rest of the year, the last division meeting. So we're also building that up, having free access to everybody, the CSPs, Hall of Fame, Eric Ward will be going over, dropping down. We have Mo speaking. We've got Michael and Zeta there. And top performers, it'll be bringing the goods, and getting them ready to absolutely dominate these next 2.5 weeks. But awesome. We're just debriefing the first part. So you can, you can continue. So you were saying like, talking to that person who hadn't really heard about GCLA. And then, so have you, I think you just had said, have you heard about GCLA? So it was like, what do they need? What do they, whatever. And then it was like, have you heard about GCLA? And then we lost you.
Right, the important part. Okay, so
Mhm.
so I was like, or so I'll say, have you heard about GCLA? And I don't assume that they know anything. I just give them all my information anyway. I let them say whatever they think, and then I give them all the information. So the way that I describe GCLA is, it's basically entrepreneurship school, and everybody is going to use it in their profession in different ways, like the skills that they gain from it, whether they want to be a branch or an assistant or a DM, or if they are doing GCLA for, just the experience, everybody's going to gain something from it. So I tell them GCLA gets you ready to run a branch office with Cutco. And, whether you end up running a branch or not, there's a lot of different skills that you gain throughout that time. So here, let me go ahead and lay that out for you. Being a branch manager, this is what you do. And you interview people, you train people, and I kind of go through the list of things that you do as a branch manager. You write checks, you pay rent, you look for an office space, you negotiate a lease. And there's a list of skills, and we have a GCLA handout, or we used to have one. I don't know if you guys still use it, that kind of goes through everything like a branch that a branch does. And I have that and I can send it to you guys, but I would just go through there and I would say, which of these do you think is going to apply to your career? And sometimes they say one or two, sometimes they say all, sometimes they say none, but I always make it a point to show them the correlation between their profession and being a branch manager. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to be a lawyer, right? Being a lawyer, you're going to have to get up and speak a lot. Well, as a branch, you do that every single week, multiple times a week. You do that when you run an interview. You do that when you run training. Imagine having given a talk or a speech to over, let's say, 200 people, and you did it, 5 times a week. For a whole entire summer. Do you think you'll feel comfortable and confident getting up and speaking in front of people at that point? You will, right? Okay, great. And I would go through all the points that correlate to their profession just like that and say, can you see how, you would get a lot from GCLA? And if you notice, literally recruiting anybody to anything in Cutco is the same thing as showing the damn knives, all right? Because what do we do when we show Cutco? We tell them, what the homemaker is. We go through all the pieces and we say, can you see yourself using these over a lifetime? It's the same thing with everything else. Like, hey, this is what it is. This is why, you're going to use it and why it's awesome. Can you see yourself doing this, or can you see yourself using these skills? So it's the same concept. So the reason I bring that up is you can apply this to anything. You can apply it to getting somebody on staff. You can apply it to showing people the value in an event, or whatever. You can apply it everywhere. So I would go through all the skills and ask them at the end, like, hey, like, can you see how this would benefit you? Okay, great. Well, this is what GCLA teaches you. And just so you know the logistics of it, we meet once a month live and in person. Now, obviously, if you're in school in another state, you might not be able to meet live and in person every single month. Maybe just when you're back in town for the holidays or whatever. But aside from that, locally, we have a weekly meeting, which if you're in another state, you would Skype in. But if you're in the immediate area, College Station, Bryan, wherever, you would drive in for that. Or if you're in Houston, you would come in for that. And it's just like taking an extra 1 credit course at school. So it doesn't take a lot of time, but what it will take more of is your energy and your focus during the time that we do have GCLA. Because maybe right now you might not be super, pumped about running an office, but you always want to have options for yourself. You want to have options for yourself to be able to do whatever you want to do. You don't want to look back at the end of GCLA when all your friends are finishing GCLA and wish, hey, and think to yourself, man, I wish I would have done that because I really would have liked to have been a branch manager. And then it might be too late for you for this summer, and you'd have to push it back one summer when you could have gotten it done now. I've always been a fan, and I always tell them this, I've always been a fan of doing the most, not necessarily because I know exactly what I want to do, but that way I can choose what I want to do later on. I want to be able to build my resume, even though I don't know the exact path I want to take. That way, instead of me having to fight for a job and fight for people picking me, I can be the one to decide and pick them, if I want to, or if I don't want to. So it's the same thing here with GCLA. Like I think it would be a smart idea if you would work hard so you have all the options available to you versus having none later on. And what do you think about that? And kind of get their feedback on it. Most of the time it makes sense to them. Like, yeah, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this GCLA interview. I'm going to, work like if I'm going to be a branch manager because I want to have that option, available to me if I end up wanting to do that later on. And the way that you have this conversation will be the same way they respond to Kathy, when she sees them on tour, which is like, hey, I'm not 100% sure about the end goal, but I know that I want the experience and I know that I want to act like if I'm going to be running a branch next summer. That way I get the full experience, of this program. So that's the conversation I would have with those people. And like I said, it's 50-50. Some of it will land, some of it won't. You'll end up getting some people on board, and sometimes some people just want to sell, and that's totally fine. Like we had a guy, Matthew Lintner, in 2016 that I was like, wow, this guy would be like just so great as a branch, so great as anything. He wanted to be in Cutco, but all he really wanted to do was sell and like go back to school and drink with his friends. And I was so set on him being like a team leader, and he really would only do it because Kathy and I would ask him to, but like that's not what he wanted to do. And he obviously didn't end up doing anything as a team leader because he didn't want to do it. And we got more production from him when I was just like, hey, just like forget about that. Just go sell and do what you want to do, because he just, even though we had many talks about it, he just didn't see that for him. And that was totally fine. And by the way, he was constantly recommending people to come work for us the next summer. And he ended up being a great asset to the team. So don't be hard on yourself if you don't get that person. And for those of you that opened as a DM and maybe your team isn't that big and you didn't get as many candidates as you want, it's okay to have less candidates that are excited than to have a ton who have no idea what the hell GCLA is. So don't just throw a bunch of people at Kathy just so you can have people. It would be more respectable to have less that are excited than more that don't know what the heck anything is. And so moving on to the next one, which is people that want to be assistant managers. Number one, the end goal for people in Cutco, if they have goals within Cutco, it shouldn't be just to be an assistant manager. Assistant managers are branches in training. That's the way you have to look at it. And branches, are DMs in training. Does it mean every branch is going to go DM or wants to? No. Does it mean every AM is going to go branch and wants to? No. But that's the mindset that you want your people in. And that's the conversation I would have with people that say, oh, I want to be an assistant manager. I'd say an assistant manager, like for the fall. Oh, for next summer. Oh, have you thought about branch? And you'll be surprised. Most of the time, people that say they want to be an assistant manager is because they're almost afraid to say that they want to branch because they know it's a big responsibility, number one. And they're kind of afraid of that challenge. So I would bring it up before because they're scared of it and before they would even think to bring it up. And I remember having that conversation with one of our assistant managers in Miami, Jarrell, about winning a scholarship or about, yeah, it was about winning a scholarship, I believe. He was selling like a homemaker a week. And I was like, Jarrell, have you ever thought about selling or about winning a scholarship? And he was like, you really think I could do that? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, you're already selling $1,000 a week. Like, you could for sure win a scholarship. And he was like, I've been thinking about it, but I was afraid to say it. And that's most of the and that's a lot of the representatives, not all of them, but it's a lot of them. So I would bring it up and ask them if they thought about it and kind of get their feedback on what they think about branch. And then from that conversation, you literally have the same conversation as you did with the people before, which is like, okay, let's talk about your outside goals. Here's what branch and GCLA offers. This is how it applies to you. You know, can you see how you can gain these skills doing that? And then move forward from there. And with the people that already want to branch or DM, you know, just reinforcing the stuff that they're getting from it, and then making sure that they have a solid reason why they would want to branch and why they would want to go DM. Make sure it's not because they want to please you. Make sure it's because that they want to and that they have good reasons for that. So that's the conversation on how I would bring up GCLA, but how to get them set up beyond that for the interview is what comes next. So this latter part of the conversation is the same for everybody. And I would say, okay, so now that you know what GCLA offers and you're excited about, the possible opportunity to branch, to DM, to whatever, I want to make sure that you rock your interview with Kathy because, obviously she's the one who decides who branches, who DMs, even sometimes who's an assistant manager in the office. So I want to make sure you make a really great impression. And the first thing I would do is I would start by rebuilding up Kathy. So there's some people who have been there all summer who might have heard her bio like a million times, but it's always different when it comes from their manager and their perspective on who Kathy is. So I would kind of share, to you, like as a leader, how you view Kathy. Like, so I would be like, Kathy is amazing, not only in the business, but out of the business. She, gives back a ton, to charity and to her family and to her friends, but she's just somebody that, you're going to learn so much from. And, she doesn't have a lot of time. So she separates this time to be able to impact and to meet with our representatives individually. So I want to make sure you don't take that amount of time for granted. You obviously know she's like a badass in Cutco, but I promise you, after meeting with her, you're gonna sell more. So the first thing, you're gonna sell more, you're gonna produce more, you're just gonna be more. After you meet her, if you shake her hand, like your wallet's gonna double in size. She's just golden, I swear. And that's the kind of buildup that you want to give them. And then I would follow it up with, so the reason I tell you that is I want to make sure that you get there and you're set up. I don't want you to go and kind of feel like shit. I'm not dressed properly. I'm not prepared. I want to make sure that you're ready to go so you can make a good impression on somebody like that. And this is how you make a good impression. Number one, the first thing that you want to make sure your representatives have before they go meet with Kathy is demos ahead of them. Demos and sales. So Kathy, and this is what I tell them, Kathy's going to be looking for how much you sold that week and how many demos you had ahead of you. So if your SC1 push number, what was it? Even if it was bad, it doesn't matter. It's just what you're doing now and what you're doing today to make sure that you're set up for success, for the rest of the push. So she's going to want to see that you have some sales and she's going to want to see that you have some demos ahead. And then go ahead and make a plan with them to make sure that they have that. And then the second thing that she's going to be looking for is, number one, you as a person and how you carry yourself. So how do you present that? Well, number one, are you on time? Are you on time for your interview with Kathy? It doesn't mean getting there if your interview's at 9:45, being there at 9:45. It means being there at 9:30. So you can get there, you can set up, you can make sure that you're prepared to meet with her. And if she gets there late, it's okay because she's the manager, but you want to make sure that she knows that you were there on time a little bit early. So I would be there early, and maybe she finishes meeting with the person before you early. and she can meet with you a little bit before, which is always positive. So just make sure you're a little bit early to your interview. And number two, another way to show her that you present yourself well is to make sure that you're dressed sharp. So you want to dress like if you're going into to interview for your dream job, you know, like suit and tie. And for ladies, just make sure you dress up. You want to make an impression. You want to dress like the person that you want to be next summer. So if you want to be a DM next summer, I want you to dress like the best DM that Vector's ever seen when you go to this interview with Kathy. And so that's the second way that you can make an impression. So number one was having demos and having sales. Number two was making sure that you present yourself well by being on time and being dressed up. And a third part of that, presenting yourself well, is having your Cutco resume ready. So just your regular resume that you already have, and then making sure you add your Cutco stuff on it, bringing that, you know, to your interview is crucial as well. That way she has all of your stats already ready to go. The third thing that you can do to make sure that you're ready is to have that questionnaire filled out. I'm pretty sure she wants you guys to have it filled out before you meet with them, or maybe she's already collected them over email. I don't know the process these days, but we had a GCLA questionnaire that we would have everybody fill out, and I would make sure everybody had that filled out already when they got there to meet with her. And then the last thing is startup. All right. Have you heard of startup? Do you know what startup is? Okay. Well, whenever you're going to go run an office with Cutco, and like I said, GCLA is being an office, you know, it's running an office training. So whenever you're going to go run an office, the company gives you a certain amount of startup. Okay. Now what startup is, it's money to run your business. Now it's a lot of money. They give you X amount of dollars, whatever the number is. And that money, it's a lot to give to an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old. So they want to know that you're responsible with your money. And one way that they can do that without asking you for your bank password is to see how you accrue and how you manage something called startup. All right. So everybody in Cutco is eligible to start a startup account. So what is that? That is when you go on your Vector Connect, there's a section on there that's called withholdings. You've probably seen it before and wondered what it is. In that account, you can voluntarily send money to the company or withhold a percentage of each paycheck to accrue money in an account within Cutco. Now it's like a bank account in the sense that you can put money there and take it out. It's not going to accrue interest, and you know nobody's taking money from it. It's just going to be sitting there. But there's no debit card connected to it or not. So it's a little bit more of like a long-term account where you're not just going to be pulling money from it. It's money that you don't need, that you're saving essentially to run your office. So you might not ever need to touch that money while you run your office because you have the company startup, but it is going to give the company confidence to give you these $10,000, $15,000 to run your office if they can see that you manage your money well. I mean, don't you think that makes sense that a big company is not just going to write you a check for 10 grand or write you a check for 15 grand? They want to know who they're giving their money to. And so how much money do we normally see in startup? Well, you know, top startup people, I've seen people that have $20,000, $30,000 in their startup. I've also seen people that have in the mid-range of 10 to 15, and then other people that have below 10 that I would consider a low range in startup. Now, right now you're probably thinking, holy shit, how the hell am I going to get, 20, 30 grand? Well, people accrue startup in different ways. And the first and easiest way to do it is now for SC2, we set up what's called a withholding. So you can put anywhere from 10 to 30%. And if you're in bonus land, you can withhold your bonus checks. And basically 10% or 20% or 30% of your paycheck would go automatically into the withholding account. So you wouldn't even see it. It would never touch your bank account, so you would never even spend it. And honestly, when I was an assistant manager, this was the only way I would even save money just for life in general, because I was awful at managing my finances. And so we can go ahead and put that on your account. I would highly suggest it. Versus waiting till you get all your SC2 money and then writing a check. Because once the money's in your bank account, you're going to be excited about spending it. It's just natural human instinct. So you can withhold anywhere from 10 to 30%. What do you feel most comfortable withholding? 10, 15, 20, 25%? And, they'll tell you, oh, 10% or 15, or I don't want to do that, or whatever it is. So I go ahead and I make a note of what they want to withhold. And then I tell them, by the way, if you already have some money, put aside and you really want to make a big statement, like, you want to be a branch, you want to be a DM for sure. And you want to really step up and show her, that this is what you want to do. I'll give you an example. We had a branch, Jacob Gonzalez, I believe his last name. Yeah, Jacob Gonzalez, who came into his GCLA interview with a $5,000 startup check. You don't have to go that hard and bring, $5,000. If you have it, definitely bring it. But, if you have like a couple hundred or 1,000 or whatever it is that you want to start your startup account with, you can do that as well and just give it to her right at the interview. So do you have that as well, or did you just want to stick with the startup? And that it's really rare that you have somebody bring a big check-in right away, because SC2 hasn't happened yet. But it is not rare that you can get people set up on withholdings. Everybody should be set up on withholdings, especially the Alliance. What the hell do they need all that money for anyway? I mean, half of them have their bills already paid. They don't need to be walking around with like $5,000 in their pocket. They can learn to save $1,000. And that's part of your job as a manager in Cutco, and just working with young people in general, is just making sure that you're being a good teacher of finances as well. Because when people are able to see that they're not only able to spend money but save money, that's also going to create a long-term representative, for your business. So that's how I would get them set up to meet with Kathy. Again, just to review, it's the demos, the sales, making sure that they're dressed properly, making sure they have their questionnaire filled out, making sure that they have a startup taken care of, making sure they have their resume. And the last thing that I would do is just a quick mock interview with them about GCLA, which basically all I would do is ask them, like, why do you want to be in GCLA? What kind of value do you think you can bring to this group? And let's say they want to branch or DM or whatever. If they have an end goal, I would say, why do you want to do that? Or why should we consider you for that? And just review those questions with them, because sometimes they say ridiculous things. And so you want to be able to manage that. So that's how I would get people ready for Kathy's tour. Now, Kathy, are you also doing like a group portion for like people that started Cutco late? Or for people that didn't meet the sales requirement? Are you doing like a group thing, or are you only doing one-on-one interviews this year? Or does anybody have the answer to that? Anyone? Okay, well, if she is doing group,
The answer is there's going to be one group, and then a lot of them are going to be individual after that. 10 to 15 minutes.
For the group ones, I would still have them come in the same way. I would do the same setup for them, and just let them know that in the group, the way that they can be impressive is by making sure that they're answering questions and being really interactive, and participating just a lot throughout the group session. But you can still have people that are excited about branching, withhold money, bring in startup, all that great stuff. Maybe they just started late, so they didn't have a chance to get their sales up to have a one-on-one, and that's fine, but you still need to have the same conversation with them. I probably might not have it as a one-on-one, maybe do that conversation in twos just to save on time. And since they're not going to meet with her one-on-one, anyway. So aside from that, does anybody have any questions about getting somebody ready for the GCLA interview, comments and or concerns, and also about what we talked about earlier, which was getting people to events? Any questions? If not, then we'll do a little bit of debrief here. No? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and debrief then. Just this little section here, we can start with, I'll just go in order. We'll go Cameron, whoever's on Kathy's computer, or we'll do Cameron, Jordan, Roland, then whoever's on Kathy's computer. So Cameron, go ahead.
So just general takeaways as a whole.
Yeah, takeaways.
Cool. Biggest thing that you really talked about that kind of hit me was really talking about, you know, the conference invites, and how to avoid making it seem like everyone comes, but also not making it too hard to get to, if that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like we've heard that before, but it's something I kind of forgot about. And I know it definitely makes an impact back when I was a just baby rep in Houston. So remembering that for my guys is huge.
Heck yeah. You choose. Let's go to Jordan.
I really liked how you like tied GCLA into like their major and what they want to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, again, if you recall our conversation from a couple of weeks ago, that also gets people, that's also the reason why people sell in August, is because now they're fighting for GCLA. So if you have these conversations properly, you're going to have sales at the end of the summer and not just stop after SC2. Roland? Okay, we'll go to whoever's on Kathy's computer.
It's a process getting on. So my big takeaway is just continuing to paint the vision and helping them see the bigger picture to what they're doing, even if they, like I had a kid today or yesterday tell me, you know, I don't want to sell knives and I want to do photography, but he doesn't want to work for a studio. He wants to have his own. I was like, so you need to learn those types of skills. And I asked him how he was going to do his business. He goes, oh, it's going to be all referral based, but I don't really like working here. And I said, isn't that what we do? Isn't that all the skills that we teach? And he was like, I guess that's right. And so just helping them understand what we do and why we do it and how it will impact their future.
For sure. Yeah. And yeah, that's a great point. A lot of these conversations are really great ways to save people from quitting as well. Awesome. Well, that's pretty much what I have for you guys today. I hope you guys get a lot of people to your event Monday and have an awesome SC2. I believe we still have one call pending. So I'll have to get with Kathy to see, you know, when we can have that last call. But I hope you guys have a great training. Bye, everybody.